Greetings, folks. I'd like to thank the Kulin Nations, pay my respects, and thank them for putting up with me for almost 40 years on their land, troublemaking, shit stirring. About 38 years ago, most of you remember that, 38 years ago, I can remember watching a young Robbie Thorpe develop his ideas and understandings, and I can remember thinking to myself, the future of the resistance is in good hands. That's why it's good to come here today and listen to these young people, Tjimba, Little G, Aletha, Nathan. I still think to myself, the resistance is in good hands. The likes of me can die knowing that the struggle will go on. It perplexes me to still be here 38 years later saying essentially the same stuff. We're here about today the intervention. It's important that we correctly analyse what's going on here. It's important that we have a good understanding of history, the history that has led into where we are today. So I brought along my Bible. Here it is, the Bible, folks. The Word according to God. Noel Pearson, our God. It's called, appropriately enough, Up From the Mission. This man is important to you. This man is important to me. This man is important to the issue that we're here today about, because it was his ideas that underpinned the intervention and many of the prohibition, arbitrary, punitive policies that we're talking about here today. If Noel Pearson was not the architect of the intervention, his ideas certainly provided the scaffolding which enabled the intervention to be built. So that's why everybody should steal a copy of this book. Don't pay money for it. Don't give him money. Don't give the people who publish his rubbish money. But read what he has to say. Understand what his ideas are all about. Understand what the end result of what he's on about is. Noel Pearson, as he says in this book, is a person, he describes himself as a rugby-loving Lutheran who has a deep, abiding joy derived from the English language and English literature. That's cool. He's into Bach and Beethoven. I'm into Bob Dylan. Big deal. The important thing about what he's on about, he looks out his window in 2009 and he sees the same problems and dysfunction in his community as I saw when I looked out the window in 1968 in Redfern. He looks out the window and he sees alcohol problems, drug abuse problems, domestic violence problems. We saw those same things 40 years ago. We argued that these problems that confront our community have got to do with our historical experience through colonialism, through the apartheid system that we grew up in, through the agency of others. No person would have us believe that we are the agents of our own destruction, that it is our fault that those problems exist. I'm not denying, and nobody can deny, that we don't have severe problems of alcohol abuse, drug abuse, domestic violence in our communities. But the answers or the potential solutions to those problems do not lie in us embracing the white man's values, embracing corporate Australia, seeking the free enterprise system as a means of liberating us from our poverty. A lot of what Noel Pearson says, a lot of Noel Pearson's ideas are based on the false premise that the ideas of the land rights movement 40 years ago, the ideas of the Black Power movement 40 years ago are somehow discredited and those ideas failed. This is a false reading of history. Those ideas never failed for the simple reason they were never implemented. There was never an opportunity to test out what we said worked or not. Instead, what happened, the land rights movement, the struggle for land rights, economic independence and self-determination that was the dominant part of the political movement of Aboriginal Australia throughout the 20th century was in fact destroyed by the Hawke-Keating government. Let's never forget this. The man who in this book, Noel Pearson, claims is one of the greatest Australian Prime Ministers ever, don't forget that he and Bob Hawke and the ALP in a corrupt deal with the corrupt West Australian Premier Brian Burke in 1986 did a deal with the mining companies in Australia to destroy land rights. Bob Hawke came to power claiming that he would deliver Aboriginal people national uniform land rights legislation, freehold title, ownership of land. Brian Burke, one meeting with Bob Hawke behind closed doors, end of land rights. 13 years later, when the Labor government left power, what did we have? We had native title, the most inferior form of land ownership under British law. Meaningless, bullshit. Native title is not land rights. Reconciliation is not justice. Through corrupt, miserable, hypocritical, duplicitous, deceitful, dishonest politicians, the Aboriginal people continue to be denied the sort of justice that Robbie Thorpe talks about. And never forget, it was those who pretend to be our friends, the Australian Labor Party, that screwed us more than the Conservatives did. But if the ALP, who are more likely to be our friends in theory than the Conservatives, if both the Conservatives and the ALP are now implementing genocidal policies against us, where does that leave us? I tell you where it leaves us, folks. Without a strong and concerted resistance, this man's ideas will prevail. If this man's ideas prevail, I can confidently predict to you that by the year 2075, the assimilation project will be complete. The genocide will have been achieved. There will be no Indigenous people left in Australia. That's why you've got to know the enemy. That's why you've got to understand the context of his ideas, and that's why his ideas need to be resisted. Go out and steal this book. Thank you.